Good day everyone. Today we are going to discuss the second part of the novel Bringing Tony Home, Tony. So we have done a video on the first part, The Sunset. If you haven't watched it, you can watch it first. If you want to read the article, you can always visit our blog letsprint.com. So the second part of the novel starts in cohesion with the latter part of the first part, Sunset, where the Tony's family leaves their familiar surrounding at Depanama to Egodawatha due to the economic crisis, mainly because of World War. The second part of the novel is mainly about Tony and Tissa. Tony means the beloved dog of Tissa, and their adventurous journey from Depanama to Egodawatha on foot. Consider about the time duration of this part. It is about 1 month. This portion of the novel is important to understand the relationship between Tony and Tissa, as well as it's quite striking to see that 1950 Colombo, because it's like going back to the time using a time machine. You will hardly believe how rural and underdeveloped the Colombo area was. Through this mesmerized memory, this produced the teledrama Pitagam. This portion of the novel further explains how Tissa adapts to the new life without Tony, as well as how Tony adapts to the new situation without a family, without anybody to take care of him. So if we start the second part, we can see how Tissa's family leaves the Panama, leaving the beloved dog Tony behind. Tissa is angry mainly because he couldn't do a thing about that, and because of that he is very angry about his parents, how they had left Tony unceremoniously behind without having a care about the dog who had been living with him for a long time. So you can take a look at the quotation related to that. So we can see how they settle, and this is still angry mainly because he had lost his only companion. As a sick and feverish child, he didn't have any companion, he didn't have any friends. Tony was his only companion. Because of that, he's angry mainly because he couldn't do a thing about parents leaving Tony behind. So, luckily, after a few days, he gets a chance to go to Depanam again to buy the weekly ration from the cooperative shop. Those days, the government distributed weekly ration for the poor. They could collect them from the cooperative shop. For that, Tissa goes to Depanam. Hearing this, Tissa feels very happy because he had the plan inside his mind to bring Tony back. So now he gets the opportunity to go to Depanam and bring Tony back. So he feels elated. So you can see the quotation how he is elated. It is in capital letters. So you can see they start the journey. Both of them were starving without lunch because of the eagerness, because of the enthusiasm. Tony, the teacher hadn't get their lunch because they have to leave, because they are going to walk all the way from the Panama to Igadavat on foot. So we can see how he plans this. He never reveals his journey on foot to Igadavat to Mrs. Pereira also. He keeps all the things in his mind. We can see how about 8 years old child walks with a lot of provisions, mirror in his one hand, and the dog is tied to one of the buckles in his trouser. He's walking all the way to Egodavatta. You see, this is not an ordinary boy, because he's a sick and feverish boy. He often gets fits. So it is kind of a very brave act on the part of Tissa to take such a decision. I think we can understand how much he loves his dog. So they walk and reach high level road by noon, and come to the road called Alutparal. It leads up to Maharagama. They reached to a humble boutique called Rosalinona's Kade. So at that time he was very tired because it's a long journey to come to Rosalinona's boutique also. So he was tired and hungry. He was to evade that place because Rosalinona's Kade was somewhat crowded. Because of that, he tactfully evades those kind of crowded places and into a gravel road runs parallel to that road and walks through that. Unfortunately, he virtually collapsed because he was suffering from fatigue You can understand a small boy who couldn't get his lunch and without water and nothing. He's walking with a lot of provisions under his hand. So he virtually collapsed at the 11th mile post. He's still very much far away from home. Now he fears because he always gets fits when he is tired. However, he managed to get away this sick and feverish feeling. He uses his bag of provision as a pillow and lies down on the ground and start resting. The cool breeze and the company of Tony gives him some consolation. Because of that, he soon recovers his tiredness and he recovers quickly. Though he needs more rest, he walks like a sleepwalker because he knew that night is about to fall. Because of that, he had to hurry. Because of that, he walks like a sleepwalker. On the way, he meets a house similar to Gira Ata's house. Gira Ata is the person who brought milk to their house every day. It's a past tradition. There was a milkman in the village. Every day in the morning, he brings milk in bottles to the rich houses. Because of that, we can understand this family was somewhat rich family, and this Gira Ata is the person who brought milk to their house. So he see a familiar house. In this Girata's house, there is a welcome decoration. That means there are two rabbits on either side, and in the middle there is the welcome note. So she sees this similar note in this new house, the house similar to Virata's house. It's symbolically like a welcoming note to everybody. And in those times in Sri Lanka, people welcome even strangers to their houses. The houses were filled with villagers and they were very hospitable. They welcome people to their house. They provide tea, they provide food, and they provide bagel and everything. So it's that kind of culture we had in the past. Now Tissa's small hand were stiffened with the weight and he opted to rest there. So he relieves his weight under his hand and sits there on the veranda of the house. So suddenly Tissa realizes that he has lost his book of rations. This book of rations work as an identity card to the people. So to this ration card, the food ration was provided by the cooperative shop in the village. So his sole reason to go to Depana was to bring this ration from the cooperative shop because now they are very poor. They are provided with the ration. Now he understands his book of ration is lost. Now he is in a frantic situation because now he cannot go back to Depana because he has come long way back. And losing this ration book means their family is going to be erased from the system. And the thing is, recovering a ration book is also a very tedious process. Now he doesn't understand that. Now he only understand now he has lost this ration book. Now he is utterly frightened. So he says that it's certainly the end of the world. So it's like end of the world to him. So it is a very serious situation for a child to handle. But suddenly he remembers where he has get them under his shirt. He looks under his shirt and suddenly finds the books are sound and safe. So he's happy, he feels elated and acts like a lunatic person. Because of that, the grey woman and the boy with scar face in the house, they think this boy has gone mad. So he gets a glass of water and quenches his thirst and tiredness. Now he starts his journey from Maharagama to Vattegedara. So it is quite striking the language he uses to describe the places. He describes each and everything, even smaller details about the background. So when the reader reads those descriptions, he or she feels that he or she is in the middle of that scene, experiencing the scene. So such is the language, and that further tells how vigilant this is. He's scanning and he's exploring the surrounding while he is walking. So we can see he's quite an observant character. So he starts walking through the Highland Road, passing the boat trees. So you can see these boat trees are still here and there in the Colombo area. These boat trees symbolize that those trees were planted to mark the legendary campaigns held by Anagarika Dharmapala those days. So he reached to Navin station. His trains and this has a mutual connection. You can see that at the end of the novel, the little train. So we'll do a video on that one also. So this train, the sound of the train works his stream of consciousness, connecting his past memories to the present. Because the train had been a landmark of Sri Lanka because the train had been the same from the history up to the present. So it has a connection. It's like a connector to the past and the present. Again, he described Nalin station with the minute details. You can see, you can picture Nalin station like you are sitting in front of the Nalin station. Again, we can see how observant he is. Keep the things in his memory and decode them when it is needed. So we can see here, this is a very artistic character. It is quite strikingly notable his background descriptions. He vividly described using visual, kinesthetic imagery, and we can see almost all the imagery in the novel. So on the left side of the high-level road, he gives a picturesque and enchanting view of sunset near a paddy field. So here he described how the amber light is spreading over the paddy field, how the sun sets far away in crimson and red light. So it is quite an interesting description. You can see how aesthetic and rich his language. And this scene is very important because both Tissa and Tony descend to the paddy field and they start drinking water from a place called Peter Allen. So it is a small canal which provided water and which released water from the paddy fields. So in this paddy field there are fish, and he described how the fish were gathering around the muzzle of the Tony while he is drinking water and how he is playing with water. So this is a very picturesque and happy moment in Tissa's life at the end of the novel, and the latter part of the novel he recurrently sees this scene that shows this scene is something which engraved in his mind because he enjoys that scene. That is one of the sweetest memories he had with Tony. After quenching their thirst and tiredness, they start climbing the Navin hill. Now he sees the first landmarks of Vijayarama Junction. Now he feels elated. He feels elated like a boatsman who sees a land. Now he knows he's close to his village. He's going to end his tiresome journey. Now he's walking parallel to a railway and he's physically and mentally exhausted. You can understand how a child who hasn't got any food and is suffering from a disease and he has never walked such far. Now he is physically exhausted. Now when the train goes on the rails, he feels very disturbed. Now his tiresome mind is disturbed by this sound. He feels like the train is running on his weak body, crushing his bones. His legs are shivering and knocking each other because of the sound of the train. You can see how much he is exhausted. So I think he walks like in dream after that point. He doesn't know how he reached his house. So that was, the train was the last memory in his mind. He falls sick after coming to the house and he has been ill for 3 days. So we will discuss what happens after that in our next video. You can read this post in our blog listprint.com and wait for the next video, and we will post it soon. And if you haven't subscribed our channel, please subscribe this channel and stay in touch. So bye bye for now. Have a nice day.